All right, welcome into the modcast. A little bit of a different modcast crew today. Alex Dunlap, Cody Carpentier, and Jason Sukamel, as Ben G saying in the chat, the first modcast of the new fall schedule. And we have no Anwar and no Catch. So off to a great start. Anwar has coordinator availabilities this morning. He gets all three coordinators. Flood, PK, and Jeff Banks, and that starts at 11. And he lives, like all of us, a little bit far away from campus, so he's having to make the trek in and not able to join today. Ketchum, I think Ketchum still has his Ketchum's internet's out again.
I think he's on pseudo vacation, but he's still around. So
okay, I wasn't sure.
Ketch's idea of vacation and my idea of vacation are wildly different. When I'm in vacation, like I got to get out of town, get out of the country, go somewhere.
I'll. Like next time I go on vacation, I'm erasing Microsoft Teams off of my computer for
holy shit, Alex. You don't mind me saying my phone, dude. Like last week I was on vacation down in Mexico, and I think it was the day I was flying home, like 7 a.m. Just bing, 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 bing. I'm like, no, I want to sleep in on vacation, so I've got to turn off my notifications when I'm gone. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's exciting because there's so much going on, right? And it's just. We're back into it, man. We got football tomorrow, football practice tomorrow. We'll have availabilities Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Also some head coach and player availabilities afterwards for interviews and stuff. And it's sounding like we'll probably get some practice availability next week too, although the wording on the email could be taken in a few different ways, as Anwar pointed out. I do think we're going to get this week and some next week. Then after that, we'll be kind of relying on sources and all the rest. But we get to see with our own eyes what's going on here at practice starting tomorrow. So Jason will be there. I'll be there. Anwar will be there. Sonny Nelson. What is Sonny? Like our office manager? What is she?
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, it's a sales lady, office manager, and also like awesome video getter and stuff. She'll be there as well. So we'll have all the coverage for you here on the YouTube channel, but most importantly over on Orange Bloods. We're going to have an exciting promo offer here in the next, I think starting tomorrow. So keep your eye out for that. Boys, we're here to talk position battles. Let's go position by position, and we'll just kind of talk about what we're interested in seeing tomorrow. What, Jason, the first thing you get out there, whenever you get out there and look at these players, what it is, whenever you go to these groups that you're sort of interested in seeing. And as we go through it, we can highlight some of these position battles that we're anticipating. I think we should start out on offense, and we should start with quarterback. No position battle, I don't think, unless you know something I don't know, Jason, from behind the scenes. But is there anything you're interested in sort of seeing with these guys? Clearly, it's going to be the group that most of the reporters kind of flock to and keep their eyes on from most of the practice portion.
Yeah, and I'll surely have several pictures. Those guys are always easy to get pictures of, right? And they make good front page pictures. So I always make sure to get plenty of quarterback pictures. You know, Quinn Ewers, we know what he is, right? I mean, is he going to make improvements this year? We'll see. That won't be known until actual games. But I am kind of curious, Anwar, to see Arch Manning and Trey Owens to a lesser degree. You know, Arch had such a fantastic spring game. I don't know, it elevated everybody's expectations, and I don't know if those are realistic or even fair to Arch. You know, he's going to have good days. He's probably going to have some bad days, but I just want to see and hear over the course of fall camp. Is he more consistent? Is he playing more like a veteran quarterback? Is he eliminating some of maybe the mistakes he was making in practices last year? Is he playing well enough where he could possibly push Quinn Ewers? I'm not expecting that. I mean, Quinn is the locked-in starter. We know that. But listen, Quinn's missed time the last couple of years. If he misses a game or two this year, is Arch performing well enough this camp to possibly go in and take over for a game or two, and maybe a game or two turns into a longer stint? I don't know. But so, yeah, I guess I'm going to be more focused on Arch than I am Quinn, and probably even Trey Owens, just to kind of see the development, maybe the consistency level from both those young quarterbacks, both guys who played really well in the spring.
You know, Cody, Jason brings up an interesting point, and just all things considered, with what we've heard from some of the NFL side and the recent buzz that, you know, Quinn could be a top 10, top 5 pick in this next draft. Do you think he can be if he misses time? Does he have to get through this full season healthy?
I think that's the one thing, other than, of course, the statistics matching the play, and he hits the 40 touchdown threshold, he hits these numbers that makes him actually in the Heisman conversation. It's proving that he can stay healthy, because year after year after year, you might have played 3 seasons in college football, but you haven't been healthy 3 years in college football. That would be a knock on his profile, as well as coming in heavy, losing weight last year, gains a little bit more weight this year, the inconsistency of all that around. Like, now, if the injury comes with also the growth in the passing game, and he is on pace for 4,000 passing yards, and they're dominating, but then he has something happen, I'm not going to put anything out there, but if he has something happen, I think you maybe are having a different conversation at that point. But if it's just the same Quinn, and he hasn't taken that next step forward, like Jason alluded to, and he hasn't maybe taken 2 steps forward, and he gets banged up, that's going to just be another tick on his resume in the negative side, and that could potentially push him down further in the draft. And like you said, we talked to a couple people in the course of the last month and a half, and it's always, hindsight stuff, and you're looking back and whatever, but they're like, oh, yeah, he would have been top 15 this past year in a loaded class with 6 quarterbacks in the top 15. Not exactly where you want to be. In this next class that's looked at as a little less deep, or I should say.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think there's a little more leeway there, but also you don't really want to lose that step. You don't really want to lose where you're at, where you're looking at Quinn right now is he has a pretty strong grasp on a top 20 and top 20 pick and top 3 overall quarterback, kind of just like locked in at this stage of the game. So any negative would only add question, maybe alter that, maybe unlock the latch and allow him to fall a little bit further down.
I mean, I think he needs to stay healthy, but with the same, it feels like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because Michael Penix has like 2 ACL tears, a bunch of shoulders, all this stuff, and then someone just reaches up and grabs it.
A while ago, though,
Falcons signed Kirk Cousins and still take him. It's like,
that's 2 different things, though. Like the ACLs came, he might have torn 2 ACLs, but that was 3 and 4 years ago, and then he came back and goes nuclear in that.
He has a shoulder too. I mean, it's like those are all bigger injuries than Quinn's had.
But like we're talking about, if a third injury happens, if another injury happens this year, like that's something Penix didn't deal with last year. He was clean all year, was nuclear. That year going into the draft is the biggest year.
Yeah. That's just, I'm just saying, Quinn gets labeled as being super injury prone. It's just, it's
not. He was injured his last year. He played through it. Even his last year in high school, he was injured some. So. I don't know if it's fair to label him as injury prone, but it's just been bad luck and bad circumstances. Now he'll have good protection in front of him. So if there's ever a year he should be able to stay upright and stay healthy, I would think it'd be this year.
This will be the best offensive line that I've seen him have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next position, running backs. Jason, go back to you again. What do you got? I mean, there's obviously battles within this group. I'd like to hear how you kind of stack them up.
I don't know. I think Jaden Blue is, in my eyes, the more productive and more explosive player. But we all know Sark loves C.J. Baxter. It seemed like there's been a lot of C.J. Baxter discussion, even at SEC media days. And you have Nick Saban saying, didn't he say Baxter was the best back they faced last year or something like that? So
which is just.
Yeah, exactly, Alex. I'm like, hey, who's doing your scouting, Nick? But my what I'm wanting to see there, Alex, is. Sark has a history of having one back rise up and kind of be the bell cow, as our man Barry Sorrell jumps in the chat there. But is that going to be the case this year, or is it truly going to be a rotation throughout the year, or is one of these backs, probably Jaden Blue or C.J. Baxter, is one of them going to separate from the pack? I think it probably will, even if Sark's not expecting that. That's just his history. But is one of those guys going to start to separate even in fall camp from the other and kind of be the bell cow, if you will, in that offensive backfield?
Do you see a position battle occurring between Trey Wisner and Christian Clark, maybe as that pass receiving option as the sort of third guy, or do you consider Gibson in that territory? I mean, that feels like a battle.
Both those dudes can catch. I mean, Clark's probably the more well-rounded of the 2 freshman backs, but it's a good question. I mean, they're really talented, true freshman backs. But Wisner, they really like Wisner. He's been in the system. He's kind of paid his dues. He actually played well when he's got some touches. So they're going to have to work hard to knock Trey Wisner out. That dude's, he's a little dude, but he can catch, he can run, he plays bigger than he is. I'm not going to say there won't be a position battle, but I just think the experience that Trey Wisner has might benefit him and let him hold on to that third differential role, where if they want to go into more of a passing running back, maybe he'd be the first guy.
Cody, we talked about this last night on Football with Friends, and you guys, if you haven't heard, there's a new Orange Bloods schedule as far as our fall schedule. This is part of it right here. The modcast. As you'll see right here, 10 a.m. on Tuesdays, this is when we're going to have the modcast moving forward. On Wednesdays at 10 a.m., it'll be the recruiting hour. And then starting on August 22nd, we'll have the Prize Picks show during this 10 a.m. block. But 9 a.m., as you guys know, stays the same. We have House Divided going back to its full 2.5, 3 hour show with Catch and Chad. Football with Friends. Cody and I debuted that thing last night. It was a good show. We went through the entire depth chart and sort of how I constructed the depth chart projection. So if you want to have more depth chart talk, you can go listen to that. Of course, The Outsiders, 8:30 p.m. I think that's still on Wednesdays for now, but it'll be going back to 2-3 days a week once we get into fall camp, or once we get into the actual season, through fall camp and into the season. Cody, so we did talk about the wide receivers a bunch last night. I'm dying to hear what Jason has to say about it. But if you can, I don't even know what to say about the toughest battle, because for me, there's a couple of things that I'm just not sure about. I'm not sure where Silas Bolden's going to line up. And so I think there's going to be a battle involving Silas Bolden, possibly a position battle death match. I think that there's going to be one kind of between maybe Isaiah Bond and Ryan Wingo at the X. I think there's probably something between either Jonte Cook, Silas Bolden, Matthew Golden at the Z. Does DeAndre Moore maybe get pushed by anybody in the slot? Does Silas Bolden play slot? He played outside last year. Just your thoughts, man. What's the position battle here to watch? Is it all of them?
I again, brought it up last night, but Sark brought up 7 receivers at the SEC Media Days, which we all think is a little bit out of pocket, putting Ryan Niblett in the same conversation here. If you put Golden there at the 6th guy, I think you're going to see a big rotation of the 5, and then you'll get enough Golden, I think, to suffice him this season. But the biggest thing I'm looking at is just to see what the rotations look like. How many different, I don't know if, when you're sitting there at practice and, you get a 20-minute window, I don't know how many different combinations they're going to show you. Like, you might get 8 different combinations of Bond at X, Moore in the slot, Cook at Z, and then all of a sudden they're going to sub in Bolden for Cook, and they might move Bond over to the slot. They might move Wingo outside, and they'll just move these guys all the way around. So I think I'm not really looking for a competition per se at the receiver position. I just want to see what Cook and what Wingo look like. We have a pretty good idea what Bond is, what Bolden is, and where they are in their college careers. Really what it comes down to with those two guys is just the connection with Quinn, and if that is going to be established already, soon, or when the season gets here. I want to see the maturation process of Ryan Wingo, what he looks like, and if he can be that dude, that X receiver, and also what Jonte looks like vis-a-vis Silas Bolden. I guess that could potentially be the competition. I'm looking at Silas and Cook. And more so looking at Cook and his maturation process versus a 5th-year guy in Silas and what we already know he is. But in reality, I just want to see what the rotations look like and if Ryan Wingo is the alpha.
We have a super chat. Thanks so much to that. Thanks so much to everybody in the Specs chat line for being here today. I see Barry Sorrell in there with his 88 is great, of course.
Many of those this year, I hope, Barry. Yeah,
good to see you, my friend. Not sure Barron's in for too much of a position battle, but we'll certainly talk about him whenever we get into the defense. But for now, we'll talk about Thomas Quinn, who has a super chat. And once again, thank you so much for the super chat. If you send these in, we're going to stick you right here on the page and answer your question. So he says one by one. So I guess he means one by one, each one of us. I think that's what he means. Who do you guys think wins the starting receiver spots, and who surprises, disappoints this season out of the Big Six?
Hey, Alex, if you don't mind, I'll start. I sent in Microsoft Teams to you and Cody, just sent a picture that Ryan Wingo posted on his Instagram while I talk. I don't know if you can pull that and maybe put it up on the screen. That dude looks incredible, man. I mean, he looks like a seasoned NFL receiver if you can grab it. But Thomas Quinn, who do we think is going to be the starting receiver spots? Who surprises, disappoints? Dude, that's a tough question. That is like literally, I wrote in my 3-2-1 today, and I listed, I think, look at that. Yeah, that is a grown ass man right there in Ryan Wingo, true freshman receiver, dude. So, but I wrote in my 3-2-1, like, hey, here's the things I'm most interested in looking for at these open practices. And receiver was number one because I just don't know, like, how is Silas Bolden going to fit in? I'm looking at the depth chart, Alex, you put out on Sunday night. And I don't know how you projected that, dude, because some of these are so tough to call. But, like, I still think Isaiah Bond, I think he's entrenched. You brought him in for a reason, okay? He's a veteran. He's produced on the highest of levels. I think he's going to fit in. I don't know, man. Is Jonte Cook, or is it going to be a guy like Wingo? Could they slide Wingo over to that other side? And then I know DeAndre Moore is kind of the entrenched starter right now, or he was coming out of the spring, right, in the slot. Is Silas Bolden? Yeah, he played on the outside at Oregon State, but is he a guy? I think he could. I don't see why not. He seems to have that
quick, a lot of twitch, a lot of lateral agility.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could work out of the slot perfectly fine. I just don't see how you keep that dude off the field with his speed and explosiveness. So I'm going Bond, Bolden, and I'll probably go with Jonte Cook as the other starter. But dude, it may change from week to week, and the productivity may change from week to week. It may be one week where, Isaiah Bond goes for 120 yards, and the next week he gets 20, and Matthew Golden catches 7 balls. So but I'll go Bond, Bolden, Cook as my starters. Disappointment, man. I'll kind of coattail off or ride of Cody's coattails. Sark mentioned Niblett. Good player, fantastic athlete.
No, technically he's not in the Big Six, so that's
Big Six. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
He's the 7th. Out of Bolden, Golden, Bond, Wingo, Jonte, DeAndre Moore.
Man, I hate to label any of them disappointment, but I guess I'll go with Moore if I'm projecting Bolden to take some of his reps. But, man, I mean, to be honest, Thomas, I don't have a clue, dude. And that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most starting tomorrow, just to see how some of these reps get divvied up.
I'll say I think on the end, I think I'm going to agree with Jason, although I'm just going to say that I think that could end up being really, really wrong. That could be like we could see Silas Bolden not take one single snap out of the slot. And I also guarantee this tomorrow on the first day of practice, dang well, Jason, that DeAndre Moore is going to be in the slot. Yeah. I think through the course of camp is, I think what he's like,
at least for the first week, that's kind of the pattern. And then maybe they start working someone else in there.
Yeah. But I do. I said if it were up to me, I would want to see Isaiah Bond some in the slot. Cody always brings up the fact that he played 48% of his snaps last year there. We just haven't seen him much there. I looked at it last night. We did see him situationally in 3 snaps in the spring game play in the slot. So, but look, I want to see Wingo play. I think he's awesome. I think he's going to start out as sort of like the Uber number 4, the one that they're going to deploy. I think they'll deploy him a lot down in the red zone. We even saw they moved him into the slot down in the red zone in the spring game when he scored that really nice touchdown. That was the only play out of the slot. So that was obviously something that they had dialed up for Wingo. But I think it's going to be Bond. I think Bond's going to start. I think Jonte is going to start. And then for me, it's just in the slot, man. Like, is there going to be somebody better than DeAndre Moore? And when I think about it, I think Silas Bolden can probably push him. So I end up where Jason is. And I admit that it might not be right. The one that's going to surprise is going to be Ryan Wingo. Like I said, I think he's going to be a nuclear number 4 that ends up moving somehow into some kind of starting job. If it were up to me, just with the level of talent of players, I would like it to be Wingo at X, Bond at slot, Jonte at Z. I think that would be like, as far as the pure talent now, but there are other guys who are more seasoned, right? Bolden has actually done it at the college level before. I think the guy who will disappoint relatively is Matthew Golden. I think that I think dude, whenever Texas talked about Matthew Golden and they talked about him, I dissect every word of these dang press conferences every week for this stupid column I have to write at Orange Plus that I hate doing. But it gets just as many views as the Deep did, which just it tilts me endlessly. This idiotic little column is as popular as this thing I worked my whole life on.
It's kind of like, Alex, your 8 thoughts from the weekend. Like 90% of the responses were about your Mexican food.
It's just no one cares about anything else. Yeah. But whenever you listen to what they said about Gold, dude, they were worried about Matthew Golden as a returner at the very beginning of that week. They said, man, like against U of H, they got Golden. Like we gotta stop him. Like we can't let that guy get out of our grasp on special teams, yada yada, Golden. They talked about him afterwards, saying like we felt like we did a good job with that, but we let him go in the receiving game. They've always thought of him as a nuclear threat as far as a returner. I think they're going to use him in that way, maybe more than people could expect. So maybe he could disappoint on the receiving end, maybe not getting quite as many reps as some people think. Cody?
Mine's pretty straightforward, and it's kind of a lame answer, but I really don't care, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be some type of carousel with these 5 dudes. If I had to pick today who the starting 3 are going to be, I'm putting DeAndre Moore in the slot. Everything that we've heard over the course of the last year from Jay Witt, from the coaching staff about who DeAndre Moore is and him being in the back pocket of Jordan Whittington, I think Moore is going to take this role serious, and he's not going to let anybody take the majority of the slot snaps away from him. A part of me wants to just call Wingo the X and bet on him kind of taking that role. But again, like I'm just going to go back to it. Like I don't think it really matters who the starters are outside of maybe the slot, because that's going to be the majority of the snaps. But I think Bond, Wingo, Cook, and Bolden are going to work their way around all 3 of the positions. So I'll just go Bond, Moore, and Bolden as the starters for week 1 right now. And the most disappointing one, I'm going to say it again, just like you did, Matthew Golden. It just feels like in this situation, with the amount of talent and the amount of mouths that need to be fed, Golden's going to be one on the short end of the stick. And I'm working on the projections right now that I'm going to, repost. I posted them back in April, and I think I'm going to end up having 5 of these dudes north of 50 targets, and the one receiver of the 6 that isn't is going to be Golden.
Like Alex said, you can justify that if you're a coach and, hey, dude, but we're going to get you a bunch of touches in the return game. So you can maybe keep them happy that way. Yeah.
Let's go to tight end. Jason, like, I guess you wanted us. You were home for SEC Media Days doing the recruiting stuff. But at SEC Media Days, surely you heard, another what is it called whenever you don't
unsolicited?
Yeah, unsolicited. Yeah, another unsolicited name check of Juan Davis. They didn't bring in Amari Niblack to back up Juan Davis. They want him to play alongside Gunnar Helm, right? That's a position battle.
Yeah, I think so. Niblack was one of the guys I listed in my column today. Just, what can he bring to the table? I mean, Gunnar Helm, like, am I wrong on this? I think Gunnar Helm has a strong chance to be a Sunday player. I mean, you guys probably know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so, I mean, he's on all the watch lists for the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl and all this stuff.
So Gunnar Helm's pretty entrenched there, right? We feel like, but Niblack brings a different kind of role, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what he does. Juan Davis is a guy that was recruited even by the previous staff. And dude, when they recruited that guy, they loved that guy. And I remember them telling me, like, he's not a tight end. He's just an offensive weapon.
He was a wide receiver kind of, wasn't he?
He did some quarterback stuff, running back stuff in high school, a little bit of everything. So they were like, he's just an offensive weapon. They're like, they literally, someone asked me, like, can you change his position on Rivals to, like, so he's not listed as a tight end? I was like, well, we could probably move him to athlete. That's the best I can do. But I mean, my point is they were very high on him. We haven't really seen that come to fruition, but he is a big jumbo athlete who moves pretty well. But I just think those, like, I'm with you, Alex. You don't bring in Niblack. Same that I feel about Isaiah Bond. You don't bring in those guys who've done it at a place like Alabama to be a backup. So I think it's probably going to be Gunnar Helm and Niblack are going to be your 2 main focal points of that position. But we'll see. That, like you mentioned, Juan Davis got some mentions, so we'll see if he can kind of carve out some sort of role.
Did Did you say members of the previous staff took time out of their day to ask you to change the rivals classification of?
Yeah, they wanted me like to create some new position. I'm not going to say who, but create like a new
most
position.
bizarre thing I guess it's probably not the most bizarre thing you've
And like, I don't know why that matters. Like, is it going to piss off Juan Davis if we list him as a tight end? I don't know why that mattered, but
should have moved him to quarterback.
Make a new position. I was like, can't do that. I can maybe put him as an athlete, but yeah, that's all.
Cody, you got anything about the tight ends, or we can move on to the offensive line?
I don't know why you didn't move him to quarterback. He was an all-district quarterback in high school. That would have made the most sense to me. But yeah, my only thought there is literally just time will tell. The more and more I think about this unsolicited Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm compliment, the more I just think of like that potentially being just something like Sark like put out there just to like, hey, like Nyblack gained 14 pounds. Since from spring till now, according to the depth chart, according to the roster on the Texas website. It's like maybe that's just something. Maybe I'm also just galaxy brainning this and thinking that Sark is sending this out there into the ether, just not mentioning Nyblack, rather mentioning Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm, trying to get him kind of get your feet moving, get moving, just take this job serious, take it. The opportunity's there. But I think in the course of at the end of the spring, or the end of the spring, at the end of the fall camp, Nyblack will end up being the guy standing at the top.
Let's talk about all right. I don't think that there's any competition at left tackle, right? That's Kelvin Banks and Gooseby, and behind those guys is Jaden Chapman. Is there anything at guard, Jason? We talked about this last night. And the general line of thinking was last night that if anything were to happen to Majors and they move Hayden Connor into center, which is I think what they would do, is that still a battle between Cole Hudson and Nato Yazumalo for you at the left guard, or is Cole Hudson going to definitely be ahead? Is that something to watch? I think the main point is we need to look and make sure that Nato looks like he's better, right?
You'd lean Hudson, right? He started there his entire freshman year. We all think and thought Nato had a world of potential coming out of high school, but he hasn't realized it yet. So I would lean Hudson if something happened where Connor had to go into center or something. I would think Hudson would be the guy, but I would defer to you, Alex, on probably those predictions. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's what happens. And then I think the only other thing worth discussing. Well, here's something for you. I wasn't exactly sure where to put Nate Kibble. As of right now, for right guard, I have DJ Campbell, Cole Hudson right behind him, but we did have the left guard scenario with Hudson that we just discussed that I think would happen. And then behind him, we know is Connor Stroh. Do you think Nate Kibble and Connor Stroh could maybe battle for that third right guard?
I don't know. I haven't seen Kibble yet, but Stroh's they're two different players just in terms of their frames and their size. Stroh's obviously been in the program for a year. I wouldn't rule anything out, but I need to see Nate Kibble in fall camp and hear how he's doing before I would put him ahead of a guy like Connor Stroh, who's been in the program for a year now.
And finally, at the right tackle, do you think that Brandon Baker is now just ahead of Andre Kojo after the spring game?
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not sleeping on Kojo either. I mean, he came in as a very young player. I forget what his.
Yeah, he was like 15 or something. It was
a year ahead.
I forgot what it was.
He basically graduated a year earlier than he should have. But and I've heard pretty behind the scenes, and you know better than I do, Alex. But I've heard his name pop up, so I'm not throwing in the towel on Kojo. But Baker, comes in as a 5-star type talent. Those dudes are going to be hard to keep off the field long term. That right tackle position is the position I would be most interested in hearing about over the course of fall camp. Is Cam Williams going to live up to what we think he can be this year? We'll see. I mean, could Baker potentially even push him? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he's looked good in the spring. He's a highly rated, highly coveted prospect coming out of a powerhouse program. So he's played at a high level in high school. So that right tackle position to me still holds some intrigue.
I think there's a better chance that Cam Williams goes pro than he gets overtaken this year.
You might be. I would probably agree with that. I think you're probably right. But
okay, let's go to the defense. We got Baron Sorrell in the chat. He'll be thankful to know that I don't project a position battle for his son's starting job. Not entirely. I will say I'm not entirely. I kind of think that Baron Sorrell might be able to get maybe I don't know. They might be able to get even more out of him. Maybe if he doesn't have to play quite as many snaps. I mean, but as far as these defensive linemen, man, like he played 10% more snaps last year than any other defensive lineman or edge guy. He's up there at 60% of snaps. So I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe saw some other guys mixing in a little bit more, especially with how many this new infusion of edge guys and stuff like that. But I think that Justice Finkley will still be behind him. And now I'm not exactly sure about where Colton Vasek is going to be because he's lined up on both sides during spring ball. But just with all the dudes that we know they're going to be over there at that buck edge, I think that maybe Vasek could, if he's taking a step, he should be able to fight things out with Finkley, maybe to get some reps over there. Do you see that as a possible battle, Jason, or do we just need to wait and see with Vasek about where he's actually lining up? I just put him over there on the strong side because I knew over there on the buck end, there's just certain guys that we have to consider, like Ethan Burke. And we know that, somehow between like a Sam linebacker role and an edge role, Trey Moore and Colin Simmons could be there. And then we know that Zena is not going to play on the strong side. And we know that Tosili Okana certainly will not play over there. So if you have all those guys vying over there, I'm like, maybe Vasek's over here with Finkley and Sorrell and stuff.
Dude, there's so much versatility there on some of those guys. It's hard to predict. Weirdly, Alex, I'm trying to look at your defensive depth chart from your column, and it's not showing up in your column. I don't know if you can shoot that. Yeah, shoot that to me maybe on Teams or something. So
that's no good.
Yeah, I just noticed that the offensive one is still showing, but for some reason the defensive one isn't. I tell you what, Vasek, I just keep going back to when he was in high school. Okay, and Ethan Burke was the class ahead of him. And people that around that program, thank you, were saying, hey, Vasek is the dude everybody needs to be aware of, okay, moving forward when they get to Austin. I think that guy still has just a world of upside. Where is that going to be? There's your defense. Okay.
Yeah, you got to click on fall 2024.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. I don't really have a great feel. I mean, I'm with you. He's not going. So you've got him at the jack. That to me makes the most sense. I mean, obviously, Baron Sorrell is pretty well entrenched there, but could he push Finkley? I don't even remember what your question was. I'm sorry, but could he?
I just think I don't think it's a battle with Sorrell.
No, but I think he could overtake Finkley.
I mean, I kind of think so too. I know old Barry Sorrell in the chat's going to say, "No, that's my son's boy," but I mean, it's like I mean.
Hey, we all love Justice Finkley, right? I loved him as a recruit. His parents are awesome.
Yeah.
There's nothing against the kid, but I mean, I think maybe Vasek has higher long-term upside and maybe starting to scratch the surface of some of that upside.
Cody, what about the interior guys?
Well, I thought we were talking about the edge, but yeah, I mean, the interior guys, the biggest thing I really want to see is which one of these defensive tackles kind of separates themselves. Vernon Broughton, of course, didn't play in the spring game. Alfred Collins starts the spring game off pretty hot. How do these guys react to having these brand new pieces in Lole, Savea, and Norton in the defensive line room? And then I'm just going to go back to the one that burnt me in the spring is Sadir Mitchell. Like out of Sadir Mitchell, Aaron Bryant, Alex January, Dre Bledsoe, Evan Hills, does one of these guys put themselves in that conversation? Because if you do look at those top five guys right now in Broughton, Savea, Collins, Lole, and Norton, they are all seniors. So, of course, everyone's looking at recruiting, looking at the transfer portal, but will one of these guys, these younger guys that really feels like there's almost zero expectation on them right now, will one of these guys do something over the course of the next 3 weeks to kind of earn a couple snaps during the season or give the staff a little bit of, trust or belief that they can be and do something, not just long-term, but also short-term if needed?
It's a good question, Cody. I mean, those guys you mentioned, Sadir Mitchell, Aaron Bryant, January, Bledsoe, Melvin Hills, maybe you're not counting on them for a whole lot this year. I mean, they might get some, but can one of them come in and flash enough in limited opportunities? You're like, okay, that dude's going to be starting for Texas next year. I mean, this is a chance for those guys to really kind of solidify, get a foothold on possibly a starting role for next year. So it'll be interesting to see if one of those dudes kind of separates in the fall camp and then maybe in some limited action in the games.
Jason, do you think Josiah Sharma is better than Melvin Hills?
Yes, I do. And listen, it pains me to say that because Melvin's my dude. I loved covering Melvin as a recruit. I've never talked to Sharma, so I don't have any kind of relationship with him. But I think Sharma has more upside than Melvin Hills as a player. I do.
Okay, we'll get back to this discussion in a second. But we got to go to this super chat from Jay Lee. Thank you, Jay Lee, for the super chat. Thanks to everybody in the Specs chat line. There's almost 500 of you guys in there right now. So thank you. Please make sure to like the show and subscribe to the channel, or send us super chats, whichever is easiest.
Or all the above. Yeah.
Yeah. Says he really likes Livingston. I think he means maybe Parker Livingstone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you were him and see all these guys ahead of him, plus the guys coming in, is there basically no way you stay? No, Parker. I think Parker stays. That guy's pretty.
Parker's talented.
Pretty diehard, Longhorn fan. Has been his whole life, whole family of them. One of these kind
got
of
a unique skill set. He's got legitimate speed. Okay, he's
fast as hell.
Yeah, he didn't run track senior year, but he's got the dude's got legitimate speed. He was ultra productive in high school before he got hurt.
He knows he's going to play eventually.
It's not going to be this year, but I mean. Yeah. Jay, I mean, is he going to transfer after this year? No, I mean, he knows a lot of those older guys are going to be gone, and next year I think would be the time he'll have a chance to really shine. But I'm with you, Alex. I mean, he's a dyed-in-the-wool Texas Longhorn, and I would be surprised to see him leave.
Really good friends with I think for leaving here, he's like boys with all these the Michael Taft, Arch Manning sort of these guys all hunt and fish together and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it'd be like leaving his close friend group too.
Maybe 3 years from now, if he's still buried on the depth chart, then maybe he says, okay, I want to go try my luck somewhere else. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I would not sleep on Parker Livingstone either. I mean, he's very talented. Doesn't get talked about a lot because we're talking about the big six and some of these other dudes, but I mean, Parker's a guy that has a bright future ahead of him, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But thank you very much for the question, and we certainly appreciate it, and we certainly appreciate you guys being able to send these questions through the Specs chat line. That's because of our great sponsor, of course, Specs.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, so we're back. Jason or Cody, whoever wants to take it. What do you think about? What do you think about just the interior guys? Like, do you think that Jermaine Lole, Jason, anybody of interest to you that I'm most interested in seeing what Jermaine Lole looks like. I kind of already know what Savea looks like, but I'd just be curious what you're interested to see and sort of how you see the position battle among the new guys. You think one of the new guys can push to start over Broughton or Collins?
Probably not Collins, but I think they could push Broughton. I mean, listen, Collins too, both of those guys, the returning guys, need to make progress, right? They can't stand pat or they will get passed by some of these transfers. I don't really know to answer of the transfers, but the three transfers, Norton, Lole, Savea, which of those three is going to be the more productive, the better player, get more snaps? I don't know the answer to that. I couldn't even wager a guess right now. But do I think they could push the two returners? Certainly, and especially probably Vernon Broughton. Those dudes are experienced. I wouldn't call them ultra productive by any means, but they're experienced. They have a role. They were brought in for a reason. Johnny Nanson's familiar with them. They're going to play. And could they work their way into work their way into the starting lineup? Absolutely. I think that's a possibility.
We have a super chat here from Uncle Mickey. Thank you so much, Uncle Mickey, for sending in your Canadian dollars, which we've basically established before, worth 73 cents on the dollar. So
I didn't even recognize it was Canadian dollars. Uncle Mickey, we're in Canada, dude. I love Canada. So I think
he says he's going to the Michigan game. So I think he kind of lives across the pond there. I'm not even. Is Michigan across the? I don't know if it's
would that be more like the Toronto area. That's more east, I guess. I'm more up into west.
I play shows in Toronto, and you got to cross over by Niagara Falls.
Yeah, that's way up. Exactly, that's way up there. I don't know what would be north of Michigan. I've been to the west coast, British Columbia. So, yeah.
Beautiful area, by the way.
Oh my gosh, most beautiful area. Yeah.
So he says, excuse my imagination, 3rd and long, Sorrell, Collins, Burke, and Simmons on the line with Hill and Moore at linebacker would give the O-line fits. You could certainly consider something like that, or you could consider honestly, I'm not sure you need you could absolutely do it like that. You could absolutely do it like that.
You would be assuming you'd be pushing in Burke or Sorrell to the interior in this sense.
I'm thinking this is like Burke almost playing three tech,
which I wouldn't be opposed to.
No, it's like it'd be if we're talking about just a straight B gap assignment, I think it's fine, right? Just get up field, like that kind of thing. I don't just think you need to. That's not an excuse your imagination. That's like your imagination is envisioning something that's something like that's absolutely going to be happening. You know, it's absolutely going to be happening. So, yeah.
And Alex, hey, Toronto is close to Michigan. I'm just weirdly curious. So Quebec, Toronto might be the closest. So maybe he's up in the Toronto area. So
Toronto's close to Michigan. Why do you got to go through kind of New York to get there?
Well, it's right butts up to New York, but it's real close. It's just east of Michigan, so it's probably the closest city. So maybe he's a Toronto dude. I was weirdly curious of my my Canadian geography. I had to look that up, dude. So,
that's tough. Okay. Oh, so he is from Toronto.
He's from Toronto. Okay, there we go. Yep.
All right. What do we have next? Well, is there much to talk about as far as the linebackers? Do you think that David Benda and Maurice Blackwell is a battle?
I don't know if you're asking me or Cody. Not really. I think Benda's probably solidified that spot just with his experience, veteran leadership. I know he's a team leader in terms of, I would guess that he's probably on the leadership panel, just knowing what I know of David Benda. But I think Blackwell certainly got a role. He'll play quite a bit.
What I've heard is that I think that they don't want these guys playing in the SEC weighing, 200, 218, 220 pounds. So I think that unless he puts on 5-7 pounds, they might see him as a little bit more of a situational type of guy, but he's going to play. It's interesting. I don't think that there's anything really else to discuss here. Somebody was telling me that like Anthony Hill is just not going to come off the field this year. So I'm not sure.
I hope not, right?
Yeah.
Would.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, I tell you what, I'm really curious to see Darian Gillette though, Alex, if he's fully healthy, back from that knee injury from 2 years ago, basically. That's a dude who is a physical freak if he's healthy. So, can they work him back in? I mean, could he work his way into that rotation? We'll see. But I think that dude's a big guy who can run well, not afraid of contact. So he's an intriguing player, but I think he's behind the curve right now. But we'll see. Maybe that can change in fall camp.
Thank you guys for the super chats, man. We certainly appreciate it. Some big ones coming in here. Thomas Quinn, thank you very much, Thomas. We appreciate you, brother. Feel like the edge room is going to carry the team this year, having Sorrell, Moore as starters, and then bringing in a second group of Burke, Simmons, no breaks for opposing O-lines. I mean, something like that could eventually come to pass. I do believe when we get out there tomorrow, we're going to see Barron, Sorrell, and Ethan Burke just to start, just because that's how they do things. They don't want it to be a major shift from the spring. It's usually in the first practices where the media is not allowed, where they're going to come have Sorrell and Trey Moore or something like that out there. That's a little bit different than what it was. I do think we'll see Trey Moore maybe a little bit more as a third linebacker, where they really like him. They like his ability to drop into coverage and to kind of knife off the edge. So I think he'd be kind of mixed and matched between that kind of specialty role and then working in at that buck end role. I think eventually, though, it could be something where, Ethan Burke plays some at each side, right? And maybe takes a little bit off of Sorrell's plate over there at the strong side defensive end. We know that he's big enough to stand up to that. I'm not sure, Cody, Jason, if you have any other takes on that.
I think that's pretty straightforward. It's the expectation this year that the focus and the pressure is going to pivot from that interior to the exterior, and starts and finishes, I think, with Sorrell and Moore. And to be honest, anything you get out of Burke and Simmons is going to be just icing on the cake. And the expectation is there for, of course, Simmons, but it starts and finishes with Moore and Sorrell, and the expectation to cause that pressure. Not similar, but different / similar to how Murphy and Sweat were impactful last year.
Isn't it weird though to be talking about all this depth in explosive
It's
athletes
just,
on the edge? It's exciting, right?
Well, and here's the other thing from Jason Hablinski. He's on a flight to Turks and
Lucky
Caicos.
dude,
So
yeah.
very, very, very rich is Mr.
Yeah. So
I'll bet you
what
that's
airline, Jay Hablinski, because they must have good Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's Jay Hablinski from the board, right?
Yeah.
Just wanted to say I'm enjoying the show. Does the secondary finally take a step? And that leads me into this next thing. It's like if this secondary doesn't take a step, multiple people are getting fired. This secondary is finally like they got Taff and Makuba fighting it out for a job, and I don't care what you say about Taff. Taff has been pretty good. People say he's too slow. I get it, but he's been Johnny on the spot. He's been good. He's been able to hold off Makuba for this long. Cody doesn't think it'll happen through fall camp. I don't know what's going to happen, but we know that Derek Williams is great. We know Manny Muhammad's great. We've seen what Javion Cole brings. We know, and he has Gavin Holmes. He'll have to fight off. But then you have Jade Barron, who people are talking about, who could be the best nickel in the country. And you look at the All SEC preseason second team. The only players who were on that is 3 Texas DBs. Like, if this secondary doesn't finally take a step, there's a big issue.
And if they're getting pressure off the edge like we expect them to, that's going to help the secondary. So, Jay Hablinski, first off, thanks for the super chat. It's very generous in your loyalty. American Airlines, okay. But yeah, I would. The secondary can't be much worse than last year, right? Statistically, it better take a big step up. But my only concern with secondary, I think Manny Muhammad's entrenched, right? Who's going to be, like Alex mentioned, is it going to be Javion Cole? Is it going to be Gavin Holmes? Could Kobe Black challenge for that other spot?
I mean, he could, right?
Yeah.
That's he can play
There's
both.
A little bit of concern though at that second cornerback spot, but if Cole's as good as people are saying he has been, I mean, maybe he comes in and locks that thing down, and all concerns are gone a week into camp.
Jason brings up a good point, Cody. Do you think that there's any chance that Kobe Black could? I mean, what if he just comes in and goes gangbusters? Could he take that job from those two?
I mean, that's going to be if we're in the Big 12 one more year, I think I'd be more in line with that. But I think these coaches are going to be a little more hesitant on just pushing Kobe Black out there unless he's a complete world beater. I think they're going to be a little more hesitant on pushing him out there in the SEC with the receivers that you're going to get every single week now. Javion Cole is going to be the starter. I mean, that's that. Alex, you did the write-up on Javion Cole. We both watched Javion Cole play against Zachariah Branch, play against those West Coast teams. He's good. And I don't want to say he's great, but I think he's good enough to be the opposite of Malik Muhammad or Manny Muhammad. I would love to see Kobe Black do that, but I don't think the expectation.
I'm just saying he could. Jason brings up a good point. He could.
No, I know he could. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why
we've seen a lot of these. Like, all I'm saying is this: we've seen like dudes who look good on film versus good competition, like Devin Richardson when he played for New Mexico State and he had the great game versus Alabama and stuff, and they bring him in, but he comes in, he's just kind of small, and you're still like, well, it's not quite. I'm hoping with Javion Cole, he doesn't come in and you're like, oh gosh, he's actually kind of slow, but I don't think he is because, like you mentioned, Branch, dude, Jerry Rice's kid doesn't want anything to do with him, and neither did Caleb Williams. So I mean, it's just we'll just have to see what happens.
I should know this, Alex, but Cole has 2 years, right, to play at Texas?
Cole is let me pull up the scholarship.
You got him as a junior. Yeah, you've got him as a junior on your thing. So
yes, he'll have this year and he'll have one more if he needs it.
Okay, interesting. So where does Kobe Black, how patient's Kobe going to be if he doesn't land a spot? That's interesting. Yeah. So.
Alex, one more thing on the safeties before we get off the DBs, and this can kind of go into our conversation we had last night about Makuba and Taff. Makuba was listed second team All SEC preseason, and we'll just say this, and all respect to Michael Taff, but I'll tell you who was not a player that got top 100 grades in the NFL draft this last year. Michael Taff was not that player.
You know what? I'm going to say this about Michael Taff, though. He's never going to grade out highly for the NFL just because
he's a pretty player, dude.
Yeah, dude. Like, I talked to people when I was talking to people in the spring who were at practices, they're like, I don't care. Like, that dude just every single day makes plays. And they're like, the difference is with Michael Taff and some of these other safeties, and they weren't necessarily talking about the guys on the team this year. They were talking last year. Like, The other guys are a lot faster, but Taft gets there first because he reads things so quickly. So they're like, and these are people I trust their evaluations. Like, you are not keeping that guy off the field. Now, NFL measurables, is he going to grade out highly for an NFL draft prospect? Probably not. But, you know, could he be a special teams player in the NFL and a guy who maybe ends up making an impact on an NFL roster? I wouldn't put it past him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I think that that's obviously among the safeties, the one thing that we could say is a legitimate battle. I mean, there's no battle with Manny Muhammad, right? There's no battle with Jahdae Barron. I think with that Javion Cole, maybe you're right. The Javion Cole, Gavin Holmes, maybe Kobe Black could fit in there. I think where Kobe Black is just going to kind of fit in for now is behind Manny Muhammad, and then maybe make that flip next year whenever all he would have to be competing against would be, Cole if he did stay. With another year of seasoning for Black, that could be something that is probably more feasible for the staff to really look at. But Gavin Holmes will be gone. I think Kobe Black probably at this point. I mean, I'm interested to see what Santana Wilson looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I love Santana Wilson as a prospect. But it feels like Warren Roberson is what's really standing in their way there, and he'll be a redshirt freshman this year. So that'll be
surprised that he's at cornerback. He was always thought of as a safety when he was being recruited. So
yeah, we had him listed as a safety until they just started putting him in some game. Yeah. They started putting him in some games last year, and he's playing outside corner, and just like that's where they have him. And then at the safeties, I don't really see much to discuss besides Makuba and Taft. We know Derek Williams is completely locked in. So
Phil Sammy is such a high ceiling prospect, but I think the experienced guys ahead of him are going to keep him out of the loop for at least a year. But yeah.
Barry Sorrell's asking about Wardell Mack. I see him at the boundary corner. I have Kobe Black projected ahead of him for now, just based on what we've seen. So
Wardell Mack's, and I get it. Listen, Kobe Black's an amazing prospect, but Wardell Mack has some dog mentality, dude. That's a dude you don't bet against that dude, man.
Right. So, yeah, I think he's a really good prospect. All right, guys, we're about to get out of here, but before we do, let's do an old school modcast thing. You can just one final take. It can be the thing you're, maybe. What's something interesting? Whenever we come out of camp tomorrow and we write up our reports and stuff like that, what's something that's what's a bold prediction of something unexpected that we're going to be reporting?
These are our parting shots.
Yeah, parting shots.
You know what? We didn't talk about it, so I'll talk about it. And I'm a nerd, and I'll be looking at it. How's Michael Curran, the freshman punter? Because that dude is projected to be your starting punter. Is he going to be a guy that shanks it out onto whatever it is, Red River, like we've seen other guys do? Yeah. Or is he a guy that's going to actually look dialed in and be able to handle the nerves and everything else? Because week 2, that dude's going to be punting in the big house. So, they're going to need him. They're going to need him to be ready. So I know it's a punter, and people are like, it's just a punter. Hey, man, that dude can – we saw Michael Dixon pretty much win a bowl game for Texas with field position. So Texas needs Michael Curran to be good. They need him to be good right away.
Cody?
I'm going to go to the receiver position that we just talked about. And this is what happens every single time. Anything you talk about something on end. And what have we been talking about all summer is these 6 receivers, what the rotation is. And the one guy that keeps ending up with his name towards the bottom of that list is Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden is going to be running ahead of somebody in the rotation. I don't know who it's going to be.
Probably.
He's going to be, he's got the twitch. He's got the dynamism. Matthew Golden's going to be, you're going to come back tomorrow, throw the papers in there and go, well, now we actually have a big time conversation to have here. And we've already been having it, but Matthew Golden, he gets my parting shot because I think he's not going to irritate us, but he's going to be a surprise.
I think we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to say, hey guys, that was a whole lot more of Trey Moore that we just saw than we saw this spring. That was a big dose of Trey Moore that we just saw. I think that's what we're going to come out of this thing saying, because it's that's your big transfer portal. Like that's your big coup right there. Right. That's your guy. You went out and got him at some point. it's got the integration of that guy to being one of the true key features and one of the true faces of that defense is going to need to happen. And I think maybe we'll start to see the beginning of that in the first practice of fall camp. And we'll know tomorrow for sure. So over at Orange Bloods, we got Anwar right now talking with the coordinators. We'll have all of that information up. We'll have I guess we're doing house divided. Is it house divided? I guess they're having house divided. Catch is going to do it. I'm not sure.
No, Catch is not. I did it with Chad yesterday. I'm not sure who's doing it with Chad today, but yeah, they should have a house divided at noon.
So they'll have a house divided at noon. Cody and I'll be back. Football with Friends at 6 p.m. We'll break down everything that we've learned from these coordinator availabilities and so much more. So thank you guys once again for being here. Thanks so much to Specs. And yeah, man, it's been another great modcast. We'll see you guys